What's up, everybody? I'm Chet Buchanan from 98.5 KLUC in Las Vegas. I know that doesn't mean anything to you, but I just want to prove that I, too, am not an idiot. Because just like you, I'm listening to the Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com. Believe that.
What's up? This is the Friday Sports Riot here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Hoppy.
And I'm Ryan Stupperidge.
Call the show, 630-403-5200. That is 630-403-5200. And Ryan, who is on the phone line right now in Sportstown?
From 670 The Score, we have one of our guys who we have on a lot. Mark Grote joins us on the Illinois Center for Broadcasting hotline. What's up, Mark?
What's going on, guys? I am just, now that I'm looking at your Twitter feed here, I am just hoping to be a good opening act to one Gabe Salgado. I'm gonna give it my best, but you're putting me in a really bad position here.
I'm sorry that we're putting you in a bad position, Mark. Our apologies. Now, how has everything been at 670 since we last had you on the Friday Sports Riot?
Everything is relatively good. Things are clean. Things are fresh over at the Score, so nothing too crazy. But life's good at the Score as usual.
And let's start about some of the breaking news that you may or may not have heard about earlier today, which would have been LeBron James coming back to Cleveland. What's your take on this?
I'd say my first reaction to it is I like it. I like it a lot. When I had heard that the possibility was real, just along with everybody else over the last week, it made me think to myself, I'm rooting for Cleveland, which puts me in a very odd position as a lifelong Chicagoan.
Right.
But that was the first time I'd ever thought that, and I put all my other allegiances aside just for that moment. That you can't help but rooting for that. Rooting for somebody like that going. It's a phenomenal story in every way, shape, and form.
Mark, what do you think of my take on this? I think it's weird because he was there for 7 years and he couldn't get it done, even though he was the main part of the team. So he goes to the Heat, he goes to 4 finals in a row and wins 2, and then when there's tough times there and they lose to the Spurs, and they should have not beat the Spurs in 2013, he then leaves in 2014. Am I crazy for thinking that when tough times come to King James, he sort of gives up and goes to the easier route? Or please explain to me if I'm wrong. What do you think?
Well, Ryan, I would say that is it's a microcosm of life right there, what you just described. I would say that LeBron James actually, if you look at it, right, he played it perfectly. Now, obviously he didn't do it correctly the way he made the announcements ago. I mean, that was his only problem, but he played it perfectly. He made a bold move to leave his comfort zone, to leave a place where no matter what happened, he was going to get killed for leaving Cleveland. He goes to Miami with the idea of thinking that I can get to some NBA Finals and I could probably win a couple. So he goes to 4 NBA Finals, and he wins 2 NBA Finals.
Fair enough.
It got a little ugly, but he played it perfectly.
Do you think that the Cavaliers are going to be contenders right off the bat? I mean, I know they will, especially if they get Kevin Love. But do you think that they'll be contenders right off the bat, or will there be teams like the Bulls and Pacers in their way?
Well, I don't know if you say that the Bulls and Pacers are being their way. Yes, with LeBron James, the Cleveland Cavaliers will be contenders right away because even when he was his first stint in Cleveland, to which you referred, he never had great players surrounding him. I don't think he ever had the talent, the actual raw talent around him in Cleveland now, this time around, that he had the last time around. So no matter who LeBron James has around him, unless it's just complete suckfest, that makes them an immediate contender. Now we'll see what kind of moves the Bulls make or what happens with Carmelo Anthony as to who the top contender is going to be out of the Eastern Conference, but absolutely, the Cleveland and LeBron's no dummy. He would not have made this great heartwarming story come to pass if he didn't think that Cleveland was going to be a contender right off the bat.
Now, Mark, let's say Carmelo Anthony joins the Bulls, so then you have him on the Bulls, you have a up-and-coming team in Detroit, you have Jabari Parker on the Bucks, and then LeBron returning to the Cavs, and of course the Pacers are a pretty good team. Could this be the best division in the NBA? What do you think? Well,
I think that's a possibility. I think there's some teams out west that may debunk that a little bit. But I think that when you talk about Milwaukee, no matter what they have there right now, I don't think that they're going to blossom right away. I think, Detroit, I thought Detroit was going to be better last year, so I can kind of buy into them being better. But if you look at it, though, in the division, the only teams that you look at realistically as, like, legit contenders, like teams you have to worry about, I think at this point are, the Bulls and obviously the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Indiana Pacers. I'm not going to forget them just because of all the inner turmoil that has existed with that team. So there's really three teams that are totally and completely legit. And then you just call Milwaukee and Detroit up-and-comers and not ready to compete for the big ones yet.
Speaking of Indiana, do you think Lance Stevenson will end up with a pretty good team? I know the Bulls were talking to him, but I'm not sure if anything has come about that. But do you think that Lance Stevenson could end up somewhere?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm getting the feeling there's like this weird exchange between him and the Pacers where the Pacers kind of want him back, but they're not going crazy to get him back, and his attitude toward the Pacers is, I kind of want to be back, but I'm not going crazy to get back in there. I think he's like a perfect piece to a team that's ready to win it all. I mean, like he's one of these guys who, if you could put up with the baggage and some of the quirky personality things, he's a perfect fit. If you have a superstar on the team that can kind of, a la Dennis Rodman, where you push him to the background, and you make sure that he's third or fourth or fifth in terms of what he's going to say or having people shut him up, I think it's a perfect piece. I wouldn't mind him on the Bulls at all, to be honest with you.
Now, if he were to join the Bulls, Mark, don't you think Tom Thibodeau would be that coach who would snap the annoyingness out of him and make him an even better player with all the potential he has? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I mean, I think that's what you like. If you go to the Bulls, if you sign with the Bulls, I mean, part of your decision-making process is, can I deal with Tom Thibodeau? Can I deal with his program, his rules, his way of playing? And if you sort of concede to that, if you make that decision, then yes, you have to get along with the program, or you're going to end up sitting on the bench, sort of like Carlos Boozer did. I mean, if you're not with the program defensively, that's fine. As far as mouthing off, I mean, it's just a down to the nuts and bolts of coaching with Tom Thibodeau. So yeah, I think that if he decided to go there, he will have weighed that already.
Yeah, I also agree with that. And let's talk about Chris Bosh. As just a few minutes ago, it was reported that Bosh is going to sign a 5-year deal with the Miami Heat worth $118 million. What do you think about that deal?
I think that, honestly, I think for Chris Bosh, that's good. I mean, that's great. That's great for Chris Bosh. Yeah. And honestly, it's probably about the best the Miami Heat can do at this point. I mean, if they were to let Bosh go and not bring him back, I mean, and then all you have is maybe Dwayne Wade, assuming that he does re-up with Miami, as it looks like he probably will. Right. Then you go from being the team in the Eastern Conference and one of the teams in the NBA to potentially being one of the worst teams in the NBA. So I think it's good for both sides. When you have Pat Riley, at least that portends that you're serious about winning, and that if you trust what Pat Riley does, he will eventually put winners around you. And Chris Bosh, no matter what you want to say about him, yes, he was the third wheel. He's still a really good NBA player and still an all-star NBA player. And so I think that's a good get for both sides because Bosh had a chance to go to Houston too. He clearly wanted to be in Miami for lifestyle or whatever purposes. So I think it's a win-win.
Now, Mark, I like three teams. It goes Bulls, Lakers, and Bobcats, which are now the Hornets. And I am annoyed as hell where they are signing Jeremy Lin. I don't care that his contract expires this year. I think that Jim Boss, ever since Jerry Buss has died, Jim Boss is running this team into the ground. It's like watching a Titanic sink. What do you think? Because I think Jerry Buss is rolling over in his grave right now. I just don't see Jim Buss doing anything for this franchise, and I think he's just ruining it because they can't get any good players. They missed out on LeBron, and they'll probably miss out on Carmelo. What do you think of this?
Yeah, there might be. I'm not close enough to the situation in Los Angeles to know exactly what's going on there or how people sort of take to him out there. But you're right. The Jeremy Lin thing, it's totally and completely unspectacular. He's not a bad basketball player. He's fine. It'll fit in out there at L.A. But you also had, they did make the play for Carmelo Anthony, and I was surprised that they got as far with Carmelo and wooing him as they did. And then the Kobe Bryant thing, too. He's obviously getting older, but they're stuck with with Kobe Bryant, and with the max salary that he has and deserves to have around there, too. I think that maybe, one of the things that this LeBron James signing did to me was maybe it makes it cool again for players to want to play in other cities other than Miami or Los Angeles or in New York, because I think part of the problem with it's understandable that LA sort of just the Lakers specifically, just that name, just that brand recruited for themselves. They didn't have to pick up the phone. It's like Kentucky in college basketball. People are knocking on their door. They want to go play there, and maybe it's not quite the same lure anymore.
So if you were Carmelo Anthony right now, and you have your two options of New York and Chicago, since LA is out of it, where do you think Carmelo signs, and what's the best thing for him to do?
I still think he's going to sign in New York. It sounds like the best thing for him to do for Carmelo Anthony is to sign in New York, because I guess if I am to believe everything that I've heard from people who are in the know in New York, the most important thing to him is sort of being the biggest fish in the biggest sea, and that would be in New York as far as branding is concerned, as far as his wife is concerned, as far as his money is concerned. He said that that winning is more important. I think he sort of indicated that at one point. Actually, said was talking about that, some tape that we played on the Score. But I think in the end, it's from everybody that I've talked to, it sounds like those are the more important things to him. So if you ask what's the right move for him? Yeah, the right move for him would go to go to New York. I still think he's going to land in New York. Obviously, I think he would have a much better chance to win if he came to the Bulls.
Now, Mark, you just said that his wife is a big part of this. This is me and my outrageous thoughts, but do you think he's a bit whipped by his wife, or that this is a case where the baller's wife control it?
Man, if you got a hottie model Hollywood wife, aren't you going to be a little bit whipped by her, too?
That might be a fair point. She is not a bad-looking girl, right?
That's part of the glamour of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Not every NBA guy is getting that girl. I know most NBA guys are doing pretty well in their lives and that aspect of life, but not everybody gets the Hollywood chick. Not everybody's getting that girl. So, I think we're all driven a little bit by that particular gender of the world.
I'm glad you said that, Mark, because I didn't think of it that way. And now, before we let you go, where can people find your work online and on the radio waves?
Well, you can find me on the Score, 670 a.m. I am on with Mully and Hanley every morning from 5 to 9 a.m. And then you can find me hosting at periodic times, a lot of times on Saturdays with Steve Rosenblum, and just sort of popping around throughout the schedule as well. I love to play on Twitter, too. I'm at Mark Grote Sports. I'm Facebookable, and that's about it. Am I leaving anything out? I think that's about it. Yeah.
And now, Mark, we will tell Gabe Salgado that you said hi. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I suppose you can tell him that. Here's a little secret about Gabe, though. Not a great guy. He comes across as like a good dude on the radio and all that kind of stuff, but just overall, like once he hangs up the phone, it's just like bad guy, bad. You can tell him I said that too. I'm totally cool with it.
Okay, well, we'll be sure to let him know. And thanks for coming on the Friday Sports Riot here on SportsTownChicago.com. And we'll see you hopefully soon, Mark.
All right, and tell Gabe he owes me dinner too.
Okay,
sounds good.
Thanks.
Later, guys.
Here's my thoughts to those words before we go to break. We'll be right back. Hang on.
The Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com.